At my best friend's wedding, a girl lunged forward and caught the bouquet, only for it to slip from her hands and land squarely in my arms. My best friend, Lauren Walker, beamed at me. "Madison, looks like you're the next bride." The guests exchanged knowing glances and turned toward my boyfriend of 8 years, Mason Ryder, the CEO of the Ryder Group. But he calmly plucked the bouquet from my hands and casually passed it to the girl standing beside me, his secretary, Natalie Carter. "She caught it first." He ruffled my hair, his voice gentle. "Be good. Give it back to Natalie for now. We'll wait for the next time." The spotlight and the guests' attention shifted with the bouquet settling on Natalie. I looked at her startled yet shy expression, then rested a hand on my stomach and forced a bitter smile. Mason didn't know there wouldn't be a next time. Our 8-year promise had already come to an end, and we still hadn't taken the step into marriage. And I had already promised my parents, who were royalty, that next week I would leave and return to Montelvia to inherit the family legacy. The moment Natalie Carter ended up with the bouquet, my best friend Lauren Walker's smile vanished. She was even angrier than I was. Leaning close to my ear, she whispered through gritted teeth that Natalie did it on purpose. "Before the wedding, I specifically told everyone the bouquet was meant for you." I gently interrupted her. "Lauren, today is your big day. Little things like this don't matter. But you've waited 8 years just to marry Mason," she said anxiously. "And now you're carrying his child. If you still don't have the wedding soon, it's okay." I turned my head calmly and looked toward Mason Ryder. Natalie, holding the bouquet, was sitting right beside him. The distance between them was far closer than what a secretary should reasonably keep. Most of the guests were friends who knew both Mason and me well. Their eyes drifted toward me, curious, sympathetic. Lauren grew even more upset and squeezed my hand tightly. "Madison, I looked into Natalie earlier. She's a calculating gold digger who specializes in seducing rich men. She's been trying to get close to your boyfriend for months. You need to be careful. Lauren, you're the most beautiful bride today. Don't worry about me." I squeezed her hand back and gave her a faint smile. "Besides, I'm not planning to marry Mason anymore. I haven't even told him I'm pregnant." My words were so shocking that Lauren's eyes widened as she stared at me in disbelief. After a long silence, she finally remembered that the wedding ceremony still had to continue. When the wedding ended, Lauren hugged me tightly. "Madison, if you need any help, just tell me. I support whatever decision you make." "What decision?" After she left, Mason walked toward me, calm as ever. "What were you two talking about just now?" Out of habit, he reached out and draped an arm over my shoulders. I shifted slightly to the side and avoided the gesture. Nothing. He didn't seem to mind my reaction. With a soft laugh, he said, "Are you angry? Natalie caught that bouquet first after all. She's a young girl. Of course she dreams about weddings. Catching the bouquet was just her way of borrowing a little luck. Didn't we agree we'd wait for the next time?" He leaned closer, stroking my hair as he patiently tried to soothe me. "Why care so much about Lauren's bouquet? When we get married, I'll prepare an even more beautiful one for you. You can have as many bouquets as you want." Silently, I curled my fingers into my palm and looked straight into his eyes. "Can we get married this month then?" Lauren and I made a promise when we were kids. Whoever married first, the other would marry right after. We would be each other's bridesmaids and witness each other's happiness. The air seemed to freeze. Mason's hand, which had been brushing my hair, paused midair. A few seconds later, he chuckled lightly. "You're still taking childhood jokes seriously? I'm the CEO of the Ryder Group. A wedding can't be thrown together so hastily. Don't rush. I promise you, it will be the most perfect wedding." Bitterness surged quietly in my chest. Every time a conflict arose, he would make promises about next time, about that future wedding. 8 years had passed and I was still waiting for the day that promise would come true. But now I had decided to go home. I wouldn't wait any longer. The car moved silently through the night before stopping in front of my villa. Mason unfastened his seatbelt, apparently assuming the tension between us had already passed. Out of habit, he leaned toward me, trying to kiss me. I raised my hand and pressed it lightly against his shoulder. "I'm tired, Mason." He froze and stared into my eyes for a few seconds. Finally, he patted my shoulder gently. Being a bridesmaid is tiring. Get some rest. Natalie said she couldn't get a taxi and is still at the venue. I'll go back and pick her up. It wouldn't be safe to leave her there alone." I nodded calmly, but Mason didn't move right away. He seemed to be waiting for me to respond the way I usually did, telling him to drive safely or complaining that he was leaving me home alone so late at night. But instead, I simply opened the car door and stepped out. Watching the car drive away into the distance, I wiped the tears that stung my eyes and dialed my parents in Montelvia. "Mom, Dad, I agreed to fulfill the marriage arrangement and marry Devin Ryder." When my parents learned that I was pregnant, they were overjoyed. They said the child was a descendant of the royal family. They would never allow him to carry the stigma of being an illegitimate child. He would be given the best future possible. They also told me that Devin had already prepared several wedding plans for me to choose from. I booked a flight for 3 days later. After returning to the villa, I began clearing out the bedroom drawers. Years of keepsakes I had carefully saved, the love letters Mason had written to me, and the photos we had taken together. By the time I finished packing my luggage, Mason came home. "You're still up this late?" His gaze swept over the messy closet and the suitcase beside it. His tone was relaxed. "Why are you suddenly sorting through clothes and organizing the closet? Going on a trip?" I didn't answer his question. Instead, I asked calmly, "Did you take Natalie home?" "Yeah, her apartment's pretty remote. It really is hard to get a taxi there." "Oh." I lowered my head and turned to leave. The next second, Mason wrapped his arms around me from behind. The rose perfume clinging to him made me feel slightly nauseous. It was Natalie's scent. Instinctively, I pushed him away. His body stiffened. He looked at me for 2 seconds, then let out a laugh. "You're still mad about the bouquet? Don't be so petty." He stood up, loosening his tie, his tone helpless, like he was coaxing a child. "All right, I'll order you a bigger bouquet tomorrow. Let's wash up and get some sleep. I've got a meeting in the morning." With that, he headed toward the bathroom. I watched his back and said softly, "I promised my parents I'd return to Montelvia to get married in a week." Mason's hand froze on the bathroom doorknob. When he turned back, his patience had clearly run out. His brows knit together in irritation. "Madison, stop making trouble. I told you, I'm the CEO. I can't just impulsively throw together a wedding without any planning. Marriage is something between the two of us. We can't rush into it just because of some promise you made with your best friend." Then, I took a deep breath, holding on to the last thread of hope. "If I were pregnant, would you give me and the baby a home?" His expression faltered faltered for a moment. Then he lifted a hand and pressed his fingers to his temple. A wedding and having a child are both major life events. I want everything to happen according to plan. Madison, the Ryder Group has many important projects right now. This is a critical stage in my career. Getting married at this moment would only distract me and disrupt all my plans. So don't use pregnancy as an excuse. I want to welcome the child when everything is properly prepared. His words fell like stones, each one crashing heavily into my heart. The pain was unbearable. In that moment, I decided to put away every last expectation I had. Seeing my reddened eyes, Mason sighed, his expression softening. Just wait one more year. Once my career stabilizes, Before he could finish yet another promise, the ringing of his phone interrupted him. On the call, Natalie told him there was an urgent issue with a project. Everyone needed to gather immediately for a meeting. After hanging up, Mason left. He took his luggage with him and never came back. Perhaps my sudden talk of marriage had made him feel suffocated. The company had simply given him the perfect excuse to move out and avoid my pressure. What he didn't know was that by the time he returned, I would probably already be back in Montalvia. In the days before my departure, I quietly took care of everything that needed to be done. I sold the house we had lived in together at a reduced price. On the day I handed the keys to the real estate agent, I discovered a stack of project documents from Mason's company in the study. After hesitating for a moment, I decided to deliver them to him. Just as I reached the door of his office, I heard laughter and conversation coming from inside. Not only were Natalie and Mason there, but so were a few of his close friends. I was about to knock when one of them spoke. Mason, the others already know you and Madison argued at the wedding. They've been secretly asking me if the two of you broke up. Natalie caught sight of me standing at the doorway. Her voice sounded apologetic, but the look she gave me was openly provocative. Mason, it's all my fault. It was my first time attending a wedding, so I didn't know the customs. I shouldn't have grabbed the bouquet and caused a fight between you and Madison. Mason's voice followed. It has nothing to do with you. Madison's just being petty. One of his friends began to tease him, testing the waters. Mason, are you serious this time? You even moved out. Are you planning to break up with Madison and get together with Natalie? Mason paused. When he spoke again, his voice carried a hint of coldness. What nonsense are you talking about? I love Madison. How could I possibly break up with her? I moved out because I want her to reflect on herself. She can't keep acting so possessive all the time. Mason didn't notice the flash of jealousy that crossed Natalie's face. When she's done reflecting, I'll move back home. His assistant spoke cautiously, his tone hesitant. Mr. Ryder, are you really going to keep giving Ms. Blake the cold shoulder? Yesterday I saw Ms. Walker buying a dress. I even heard her tell the sales clerk that in a week she'd be a bridesmaid for her best friend. Her best friend? Isn't that Ms. Blake? The room fell silent. Mason's expression stiffened. A wedding without a groom? There's no such thing, he said. Normally I indulge her enough, but this time she needs to understand that I'm the CEO of the Ryder Group. Not everything can go her way. She can't make every decision. I gently set the documents down on the floor outside the door. Then I turned and walked away without looking back. The next day, carrying my luggage, I boarded a plane bound for Montalvia.
The royal plane landed in Montalvia just before sunset. The moment I stepped onto the red carpet, dozens of royal guards bowed in perfect unison. Welcome home, Princess Madison. For the first time in 8 years, I smiled without forcing it. My mother rushed over and hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. You've gotten thinner. My father, usually stern before the public, cleared his throat 3 different times before finally patting my shoulder. You're home. That's enough. Behind them stood a tall man in a Navy military uniform. Golden epaulets shimmered under the evening light. His sharp features softened the moment our eyes met. He stepped forward and bowed elegantly. Princess, I'm Devin, the man who's apparently stealing someone else's bride. I blinked. You know? Devin gave an amused smile. Your parents told me everything. He glanced toward my stomach for less than a second before returning his eyes to mine. I don't care who the child's biological father is. If you choose me, I'll treat your child as my own. No pressure. If you don't choose me, he shrugged dramatically, I'll simply continue being the kingdom's most handsome bachelor. Even my father looked horrified. Devin. What? You practiced that speech for 3 hours. I absolutely did not. The palace security cameras disagree. The guard beside him quietly pulled out his phone. I still have the recording, Your Highness. Devin immediately reached over. Delete it. The guard hid behind my father. No. For the first time in weeks. I laughed. A real laugh. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Mason finally returned home. He unlocked the villa. Madison. Silence. The living room looked strangely empty. The photos on the walls. Gone. The flower vase she loved. Gone. Even the ugly yellow duck slippers she insisted were fashion had disappeared. He frowned. Moving things around again? He walked upstairs. The bedroom door creaked open. The closet. Half empty. No, not half. Completely empty. Every dress. Every pair of shoes. Every piece of jewelry she'd bought over the last 8 years. Gone. Only one thing remained. An old framed photograph. The 2 of them at 20. Written across the back in fading ink. 8 years. Thank you. Goodbye. For the first time. His heartbeat skipped. He immediately grabbed his phone. Madison. The familiar robotic voice answered. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. His face froze. No. He called again. Blocked. He frowned harder. She's still throwing a tantrum. His assistant walked in carrying a stack of files. Mr. Ryder. The villa has been sold. What? The ownership transfer was completed yesterday. What? Anne. The assistant swallowed. Miss Blake also resigned from every company she invested in with Ryder Group. What? She donated all her shares to charity. What? Anne. There is one more thing. Mason's temple twitched. What now? The royal family of Montalvia publicly announced today that Princess Madison Blake has returned home. Mason laughed. Princess? What kind of joke is that? The assistant silently handed him a tablet. The live stream was still playing. There, walking down a palace staircase, wearing a sapphire crown, was Madison, standing beside the king, beside the queen, and beside Devon. The announcer smiled brightly. Our beloved princess has officially accepted Prince Devon's proposal. The royal wedding will take place in 5 days. Mason's smile disappeared. What? His brain completely stopped working. No. Impossible. My Madison? A princess. The assistant nodded weakly. We've verified it. It's real. At that exact moment, Mason's phone rang. Lauren. The second he answered, she exploded. You absolute idiot. You actually let a princess dump you. I spent 8 years rooting for you. You couldn't even beat your own secretary. Mason pinched the bridge of his nose. Lauren. This isn't funny. You think I'm joking? Lauren laughed so hard she started coughing. You know what's even funnier? You kept saying your company was more important than marriage. Congratulations. Now you're competing against an entire kingdom. Click. She hung up. Mason stared blankly at the palace livestream. On the screen, Devon gently helped Madison into a carriage. She looked happier than Mason had seen her in years. Then, Devon leaned over and whispered something. Madison burst into laughter. The reporters immediately crowded around. Your Highness. What did Prince Devon say? Devon smiled innocently. I simply told her. If she ever catches another wedding bouquet, I'll marry her again. The crowd erupted in laughter. Even the king nearly choked on his tea. Watching the screen, Mason unconsciously reached for the engagement ring he had secretly kept in his desk for 3 years. It slipped from his fingers. Clink. The tiny diamond rolled beneath the sofa. Just like Lauren's bouquet, the chance he'd once held had slipped away because he kept believing there would always be a next time. The next morning, the entire internet exploded. Hashtag The Lost Princess Returns trended at number 1. Hashtag Royal Wedding in 5 days was number 2. And, to Mason's horror, hashtag CEO Dumped by Princess climbed to number 3. His assistant quietly slid another tablet onto his desk. Mr. Ryder. What? Our company's stock is fine. Mason let out a relieved breath. But the comments section isn't. He looked down. The top comment read, Bro fumbled a princess because he thought he had unlimited free trials. The second one, imagine telling literal royalty to wait 1 more year. The third, Natalie got the bouquet. Devon got the bride. Mason's eye twitched. Who keeps approving these comments? The public, sir. He closed the tablet. I don't want to see it. 5 seconds later, he opened it again. How many likes? 4.3 million. He closed it harder. Across the ocean, Madison was having a very different day. The palace's royal etiquette instructor sighed dramatically. Princess. Yes, you are a princess. I've been told. You cannot sit on the palace staircase eating spicy instant noodles. Madison blinked. But the sunset looks prettier from here. The sunset has looked the same for 400 years. Exactly. The instructor rubbed his temples. Devon walked by carrying 2 more cups of instant noodles. I brought the seafood flavor. The instructor looked at him in disbelief. Your Highness. Devon looked confused. What? You're encouraging her. I am supporting my future wife. The instructor looked like he was about to retire on the spot. Wedding preparations became complete chaos. The royal designer asked politely, "What kind of diamond would your highness like?" Madison shrugged. "I don't know." Devon answered immediately. "The biggest one." The finance minister nearly fainted. "The budget." "The kingdom has a budget?" Devon asked. The finance minister clutched his chest. "Your Highness, please don't ask questions like that." Meanwhile, Natalie walked into Mason's office wearing an expensive new dress. "Mason." She smiled sweetly. "I heard Miss Blake is getting married." He didn't answer. "So?" She gently placed a wedding magazine on his desk. "Since she's moved on, maybe we should." Mason finally looked up. Natalie's heart skipped. He spoke. "Where's Madison's favorite coffee mug?" "What?" "The duck-shaped one." Natalie stared. I don't know." He frowned. "And the cactus she kept on my desk? And the knitted dinosaur she made because she said I looked scary during meetings?" Natalie slowly realized. He wasn't thinking about her at all. He was inventorying everything Madison had ever done. She forced a smile. "Mason. She's gone. You should let go." He nodded absent-mindedly. "You're right." Natalie's eyes brightened. Then Mason continued. "I'll go bring her back." Smile. "Gone." "Excuse me. I'll explain everything. You don't understand. I was just busy." Natalie almost laughed. "Busy? You had 8 years." 3 hours later, Mason's private jet landed in Montalvia. The moment he stepped outside the airport, 2 royal guards blocked his path. "Name?" "Mason Ryder." The guards checked a tablet. "Oh, the X." "The what?" "The X." One guard pointed at the screen. "Your visitor badge says, ex-boyfriend." Bright red letters. Size 72 font. Tourists walking past immediately started whispering. "That's him. The bouquet guy. The wait one more year guy." Someone actually started slow clapping. Mason's ears turned red. "I'd like to request a different badge." The guard smiled politely. "Unfortunately, our princess specifically requested this design." At that exact moment, a golf cart drove past. Devon was driving. Madison sat beside him wearing sunglasses and happily eating ice cream. She noticed Mason. "Oh." She looked at the guard. "You gave him the badge?" "Yes, princess." "Excellent work." Devon slowed the golf cart just enough to grin at Mason. "Need a ride?" Before Mason could answer, Devon looked at Madison. "Oh wait. The cart only has room for family." Then he stepped on the accelerator. The little golf cart zipped away while Madison burst into uncontrollable laughter, nearly dropping her ice cream. Mason stood frozen. The guard beside him patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Don't worry. The palace gift shop sells tissues. They're on sale today. Buy 1 pack, get 1 free." For the first time in his life, Mason seriously considered whether the entire kingdom was making fun of him. It was. And absolutely everyone seemed to be enjoying it. Mason refused to leave. If he couldn't see Madison, he would wait. The palace guards exchanged glances. "How long do you think he'll last?" 3 hours. "I bet 2. An elderly gardener walked by carrying a watering can. "I give him until lunchtime." Mason heard every word. He straightened his tie. "I can wait." 6 hours later, the tropical sun was merciless. His expensive Italian leather shoes had collected dust. His suit jacket was draped over his arm. His hair, once perfectly styled, now looked like it had lost a fight with the wind. The elderly gardener returned. "Oh, you're still here. I won the betting pool." Inside the palace, Madison was completely unaware. She was in the royal nursery. Not because there was a baby yet, because the queen had already begun decorating. There. Her mother proudly pointed at a tiny golden crib. "What do you think?" Madison blinked. "Mom, I'm only 2 months pregnant." "So? The baby won't be sleeping in solid gold." The queen looked offended. "Of course not." She opened another curtain dramatically. Behind it sat a platinum crib. "In case the gold one scratches." Madison buried her face in her hands. "Mom," her father quietly muttered. I told her this was excessive. The queen turned toward him. And who ordered the miniature pony? The king immediately looked at the ceiling. Not relevant. Madison froze. Miniature what? Right on cue. A tiny white pony trotted into the room wearing a blue bow tie. It neighed proudly. Devon walked in behind it. Oh, you met Sir Sprinkles. The baby has a pony? The pony has a title? The pony outranks several government officials. The Prime Minister, who had just entered, sighed. Again. Outside. Mason was still waiting. Finally, Lauren called him. So, how's standing outside the palace going? How do you know where I am? The internet knows. What? She laughed so hard she snorted. You've gone viral again. She sent him a link. There he was, standing outside the palace gates. Someone had added dramatic violin music. The caption read, "When she actually meant goodbye." 32 million views. Mason slowly lowered his phone. A little boy selling postcards wandered over. Mister. What? You look sad. I am. The boy held up a postcard of Madison and Devon smiling together. Would buying one help? No. What about two? Just then, the palace gates opened. Mason immediately stood up. Madison finally appeared. She wore a simple white dress instead of royal attire. For a brief moment, their eyes met. His heart pounded. Madison. She stopped. So you finally came. I needed to explain. You misunderstood. She tilted her head. Did I? I never chose Natalie. I only wanted you to wait. She smiled politely. You said that a lot. I know. I was wrong. I'll marry you. We can get married tomorrow. The day after. Any day. I don't care anymore. Madison looked at him quietly. Then, she reached into her handbag. Mason's eyes lit up. Was it the ring? Instead, she handed him a small notebook. He frowned. What's this? My waiting journal. He opened it. Every page had a date. Year 1. Mason said next year. Year 2. He said the company needed him. Year 3. He forgot our anniversary. Year 4. He promised after the next project. Year 5. He canceled dinner again. Year 6. Another next time. Year 7. Still waiting. Year 8. He gave my wedding bouquet to another woman. The final page simply read, I finally stopped waiting. His fingers trembled. I didn't realize. Madison nodded. That's the problem. You never realized. You thought love could wait forever because I always did. A soft voice interrupted them. Princess. Devon walked over carrying 2 ice cream cones. I brought your favorite. He noticed Mason. Oh, you two finished? Madison smiled. Yes. She accepted the ice cream. Devon looked at Mason. Would you like one? No. That's a shame. Devon shrugged. I accidentally bought 3. Before anyone could react, the tiny white pony, Sir Sprinkles, trotted over. Without hesitation, it stole the 3rd ice cream right out of Devon's hand. Slurp. Everyone stared. Sir Sprinkles looked immensely pleased with himself. Devon sighed. I've been outsmarted by a horse again. The palace guards burst into laughter. Even Madison couldn't stop giggling, watching her laugh so freely. Mason finally understood something that hurt more than any rejection. For years, he had convinced himself he was giving her a future, but all he had really given her was another reason to wait. And now, she had found someone who simply showed up with ice cream. Back at Ryder Group headquarters, chaos had officially replaced confidence. It started with Natalie Carter. She walked in like she owned the building. Mason, I think we should. Why is my name still on Madison's emergency contact form? Mason interrupted. Natalie blinked. What? He was standing in the middle of his office, surrounded by paperwork he wasn't reading, staring at a document like it had personally betrayed him. I said I'd fix everything, he muttered. So I'm fixing everything. Natalie forced a smile. That's great. We can start with, why is her favorite coffee mug still missing from inventory? Mason. And why is there a Princess Ex-Boyfriend badge approval system in the company database? Silence. From the hallway, his assistant slowly peeked in. That was not me, sir. Natalie turned sharply. What badge system? The assistant coughed. It was added by the palace IT department. Mason didn't look up. I want it removed. A beat passed. It can't be removed. Why not? It has royal encryption. Natalie pinched the bridge of her nose. This is ridiculous. We're supposed to be running a multinational corporation. Mason finally looked at her. I ran a multinational corporation. Then he gestured vaguely toward the window. And lost my fiancé to a monarchy. No one knew how to respond to that. So they didn't. Meanwhile, Natalie decided to take control of the situation, which was her first mistake. She called an emergency executive meeting. Listen, she said, pacing confidently. Mason is clearly emotionally compromised. Mason, sitting at the head of the table, quietly replied, I am not compromised. You chased a golf cart. It had Madison in it. You called a pony Sir Sprinkles in a press interview. That pony outranks me emotionally. The room went silent again. Natalie pressed on. We need to refocus him. Remove distractions. Strengthen company image. And the projector behind her flickered on. No one had touched it. A video started playing. It was Mason at the palace gate, standing for 6 hours. Slow violin music playing. Text overlay. He waited, but the kingdom did not. Someone in the meeting whispered, why does this have production value? Mason didn't even blink. Lauren posted it. Natalie froze. Your ex's best friend is editing your downfall like a Netflix series? Yes. Why? Mason paused. She said I needed character development. Things escalated quickly after that. Natalie tried to win back control by organizing a public press statement. She stood at the podium. Mason Ryder is fully committed to his role as CEO and is not emotionally distracted by external royal matters. A notification chimed from the live stream screen. A royal broadcast had just gone live. Madison appeared on screen, smiling, wearing a crown, and holding a microphone. Hello everyone. The comment section exploded instantly. Natalie stiffened. Mason slowly turned his head toward the screen. Madison continued sweetly. I just wanted to thank everyone for the love and support. Pause. And to clarify. She glanced off screen. Devin whispered something. She smiled wider. The palace has officially banned CEOs from loitering outside the gates during working hours. Cut to footage of Mason sitting outside the palace holding a snack like a sad security guard. The internet exploded again. Hashtag CEO under royal surveillance. Natalie whispered. Is she enjoying this? Mason nodded. Yes, she is. At the palace. Devin was laughing so hard he nearly dropped Sir Sprinkles. This is bullying, Mason muttered into his phone later. Lauren's voice came through. This is healing. I've lost everything. You've gained public entertainment value. That's not helpful. It's very helpful to me. Back at Ryder Group. Natalie tried one last strategy. She arranged a strategic reconciliation dinner. It was supposed to be elegant, professional, controlled. Instead, Sir Sprinkles broke into the venue through a catering entrance, stole the centerpiece fruit bowl, and sprinted through the room like a tiny white menace. Security chased it. An executive slipped on a banana. The CEO of finance screamed. Natalie's speech notes flew into a champagne fountain. Mason stared at the chaos. I built this company. A pause. Why is a pony winning? No one answered. Because Sir Sprinkles had already escaped through the fire exit. That night, Mason sat alone in his office. Natalie peeked in quietly. We should regroup. He didn't look at her. I think my life is just a series of things I failed to value until they left. Natalie hesitated, then softly said, Do you want me to stay and help you fix it? Mason finally looked up. For the first time. He didn't see a solution. He saw a pattern. I think, he said quietly, I already chose too late too many times. Natalie's expression stiffened. Mason. He stood up. I need to resign from something. Your position? No. He walked past her. My denial. Outside the office. The company lights flickered on a massive billboard across the street. It was a royal tourism campaign. Madison waved on it. Devon stood beside her. Sir Sprinkles wore sunglasses. And underneath it all, happiness is not waiting. Mason stared at it for a long time, then laughed once. Short. Dry. Yeah. Behind him, Natalie watched silently as he finally stopped chasing the version of the future that had already walked away. And for the first time, even she understood. Some losses don't end in drama. They end in silence. And a very smug royal pony